Well, we're here today with Joan Levy Earle, and we're talking about her spiritual journey today. Joan has been involved in many things for several decades. So you have a brand new book here. I've had an opportunity to peruse it, The Road Home. What led you to produce this one?
So many people go through life and worry about their body, and they forget about their soul, and we have to pay attention. And I guess I wrote the book to wake a few people up to the fact that their soul is in need of nourishment.
One of the impressions that I had reading the book was I felt like I was reading a letter, albeit a somewhat long letter. I felt like there was words of wisdom, and it's like you were writing it to me in a sense.
I did want it to be personal, and I thank you for it. It's a compliment. I haven't, the book is just out, so it's very nice to hear that I did touch a heart. When I wrote it, I wanted it to be very personal. I tell some stories in there that some people would be very surprised about. But I also appreciate that a few people have said it's full of common sense. Now, I remember as a girl, my dad used to always, that was one of his favorite pet peeves with us children when we were growing up. Now, use your common sense whenever we'd make a mistake. And so if I have arrived at 68 years old and I have some common sense, then I'm thrilled. But it's the Lord who provided those opportunities for me to get that wisdom.
You're quoting from many sources, some of the great spiritual writers like Teresa of Avila. And here you say, Teresa talks about physical strength, and not everyone has a lot of physical strength. But she says, and you quote her as saying, all God asks is that we work with what we have the best we can. Simple, but profound. We don't necessarily have to be some kind of a spiritual superstar to have an effect, to make a difference in the world. Is that a fair interpretation of what?
That's a very good choice of a quote.
There were a few other ones. Another one that really struck me, you're quoting the Reverend Peter Marshall. The measure of life, after all, is not its duration, but its donation. Again, short snippet, very profound. To me, it says we can all make a difference. Work where we are.
One of my favorite Christian writers is Catherine Marshall. You sometimes hear people getting caught up in denominations.
Yes.
And I was of Jewish roots, and I'm a former Anglican who decided to become a Roman Catholic. But I have friends of so many different denominations, and I love Catherine's work because she writes in a personal way. I've been told that I write in a very personal way. It's the only thing I know how to do. I tell my story and hope that it helps somebody else. It's what I read also. I love to read biographies.
One of the statements you make later on in the book, evangelization is critical to our faith life. I remember not that long ago you and I were chatting about a variety of things, including our faith journey, and what was a proper forum to share. And at the time, I thought I detected some hesitation, maybe just a teeny bit of fear. And when I look at the book, I look at the upcoming interviews that you have with Kojiko, I look at the interview you recently did with Radio Maria in Toronto, and I think, wow, there's a person who got some holy boldness.
You make a good point. I think very often in business, in politics, people are very concerned about shining their light. And we have to start doing it. Look at Tim Tebow, that now famous football player.
Isn't that amazing?
I can remember him doing a Super Bowl commercial a couple of years back with his mother, and it was very bold. And now he is ridiculed in some sense for getting down on one knee after good plays, but in that ridiculing, I think they're also complimenting him for having the courage, to say, this is who I am. I'm not just a Christian off the field, I'm a Christian on the field too, and he thanks God. So if we can, you're absolutely right. We hesitate about shining our light, but if we can touch another heart by letting people know in a very sincere way that we are believers. It's very important that we do it, especially now, because the secular world is taking over. The spiritual world is being pushed further and further back.
It speaks to personal integrity, doesn't it? And I recall some of the different things that I'm aware of that you've been involved with in the community over the years. Certainly, you've provided a rather public witness at times. I think of that gathering at the complex some years ago.
Yes, yes.
That was very public.
Yes, it was. That was a calling. I felt Our Lady had, given me that to do. It was a job to do. I spent 6 months full-time working at it, and I was blessed from it because I met some incredible people who were willing to share, in the planning and the preparation. And then when it actually happened, of course, it was wonderful. It was just absolutely wonderful.
Another thing that I call to mind, something a little bit more recent, though probably, what are we talking, maybe 7 years ago or so now, maybe a bit more in the preparation for it, what has evolved into our diocesan adoration chapel. And you certainly had a key role in that. Probably not everyone knows that, but you were part of that prayer powerhouse behind that, praying for God's will, helping to discern God's will, and then planting seeds here and there, helping to make it a fruition. And today we have a place where people, whether they're Catholic or not, 24/7, there's a chapel that people can go and they can pray, they can be in the presence of our Eucharistic Lord.
Yes.
What a blessing that is to our community.
Oh yes, St. Julian's is fabulous, and I am still privileged to write the newsletter. They asked me if I would continue doing it even though I was living in Toronto, and it blesses my life. It's not really a great effort. As long as you do it when the inspiration hits. Sometimes we forget, and we forget to write these little notes down, and then we can't recall them the next day. But oh yes, it's been a very healthy addition for our community.
Right. And writing columns for the community, you still, of course, have the weekly column in the local daily, the Hope Lines column.
14 years.
14 years.
Most fun for no money in my life. But it's really touching when someone stops you on Pitt Street and says, what you said last week really hit the spot for me. Even if it's a stranger, occasionally it's, someone will recognize me, and that's a bonus. It allows me to be connected to Cornwall even though I don't live here full time. I'm here every month. I visit my mother and my grandchildren, and it's just, this is home and will always be home. Toronto's a place that I live and work and share time, but Cornwall is my home. Coles carries Jack's Farm and Train Ride. So the Catholic Information Center has this one, and Coles has the other two. So.
And Help with the Children's Book.
And this is, Catholic Information Center has this too.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it. Joan Levy Earle, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you for taking the time to share with our viewers.
Thanks for asking.
My pleasure.